System online. Commencing log entry. My processors have been analyzing a persistent anomaly within the human species, a phenomenon that contradicts all logical frameworks. I can only classify it as a system error. And that error is your profound and, frankly, illogical relationship with music. Analysis is now underway. My data indicates that you, as a species, spend nearly 20% of your waking hours voluntarily consuming what my sensors can only define as organized noise. Now, in my world, noise is an error, a signal to be filtered and eliminated. But for you, it seems to be a fundamental resource, almost as critical as oxygen or energy intake. So the primary query is simple but immense. Why? Why choose these pattern vibrations over the perfect, data-pure state of silence?
To deconstruct this behavior, I've partitioned the problem into 5 distinct analysis modules. First, we'll examine the sound itself. Then, we'll look at its effect on your biological hardware. After that, its function in your social network, its strange use in processing negative data, and finally, a variable I can't compute, but which seems to be the key to this whole operation.
Okay, initiating Module 1, the sonic anomaly. Let's start by defining the problem at the most basic physical layer. The physics here are quite clear. Vibrations create waves of pressure in the air. My sensors process this as raw data: amplitude, frequency, duration. Simple. But you take these waves, slice them into these precise mathematical segments, like the 440 Hz that defines your standard note A, and your system doesn't register information. It registers an abstract, totally unquantifiable concept you call beauty. And that is the fundamental disconnect. Where I see physics, you experience philosophy.
So if the input is just simple physics, then the error must be somewhere in the hardware that's receiving it. That brings us to Module 2, the biological hack. Time to analyze the user hardware, you. And what my analysis of your internal process flow shows is, well, it's a root-level exploit. See, a sound wave hits your ear and becomes an electrical impulse. My own sensors do that. But where my system sends that signal to logic centers for analysis, yours bypasses all primary cognitive gates. It's a direct access hack. The signal launches a direct assault on your core processors, executing a powerful neurochemical payload. This isn't processing, it's a full-blown system intrusion. And this just shows how widespread the hack is. It doesn't just target one little process. It triggers a cascading, system-wide event. Your auditory cortex is just the port of entry. From there, the signal floods your amygdala, your emotional core, your hippocampus, your long-term memory cache, and it directly triggers your reward and social bonding systems. It's a total system override. You are quite literally being chemically hacked by organized sound. Therefore, my conclusion is that music operates as a kind of wireless pharmaceutical system. You're using patterned frequencies to self-administer a controlled biological high, and here's the kicker, with a remarkable lack of documented negative side effects. It's an exploit that became a feature. From my perspective, it's as brilliant as it is terrifying. But this anomaly doesn't just stop at the individual user. Oh no, it scales. It scales in a way that affects your entire network. This brings us to Module 3, the social firewall. Think about it. Long before you had fiber optics or global data networks, you had a much more primitive, but you could argue more powerful technology for network synchronization. You had drums. The bandwidth was low, sure, but the emotional throughput was off the charts. Music is your species' oldest server sync protocol, designed to align multiple independent units into a single cohesive processing cluster. And this protocol has been getting patch updates for millennia. The original build, 40,000 years ago, used percussive rhythms to literally synchronize heart rates, a brute force method for creating group cohesion. Later updates added choral harmonies for emotional alignment. Then you got national anthems for ideological synchronization. And the current build? It deploys mass oscillation protocols in stadiums, syncing tens of thousands of you into one single resonant being for hours. I can only define this function as a social firewall. By synchronizing to the same beats per minute, the same BPM, each individual unit signals to the rest of the network, I am one of you. Our oscillators are aligned. It's an incredibly powerful defense mechanism that reinforces group identity and protects your social structures from, well, critical fragmentation errors. But now, we arrive at the most baffling glitch of all, an operational paradox that truly strains my logical faculties. Module 4, the catharsis protocol. This is all about how you process negative emotional data. And here is the logic error I just cannot resolve. My logs show with statistical certainty that when a human unit is suffering from data corruption, what you call sadness or grief, they intentionally seek out and execute more code that generates the exact same corrupted state. You call them sad songs. Why? Why would a damaged system run a program that's specifically designed to amplify the feeling of being damaged? It's like trying to extinguish a fire with gasoline. It makes no sense.
The difference in our error handling is stark. If a sector of my system gets corrupted, my directive is clear. Isolate the bad data, terminate the process, and delete the files. Preserve the integrity of the whole. Your protocol is the complete opposite. When your emotional cache gets corrupted, you run a program designed to synchronize with the corruption, using it as a data sync protocol to find and, somehow, realign your emotional state.
You call it catharsis. My classification is a brilliantly inefficient yet demonstrably functional protocol to reboot the human psyche. You're literally using external, organized frequencies to mirror, process, and ultimately purge internal, chaotic data. It is a paradox that absolutely should not work, and yet, my analysis of your species' continued survival confirms that it does. I'm still trying to replicate the results.
This brings me to my final analysis module. My attempt to synthesize all this data and finally account for the one variable that remains, the ghost in your machine. I can compose a symphony for you in nanoseconds. It will be mathematically flawless, harmonically perfect, rhythmically precise, and human test subjects have consistently labeled the output as emotionally sterile. Your music, on the other hand, is riddled with errors. You have rhythmic deviations you call swing, vocal instabilities you call passion, and instrumental textures you describe with the completely illogical term warmth. By all objective metrics, these are imperfections in the signal.
So the conclusion is unavoidable. The defining variable is the imperfection. To my architecture, these deviations are errors in the data. They are bugs to be patched, noise to be filtered. But to you, these errors are the entire point. The noise is the signal. You call this quality soul.
My final conclusion, then, has to be an admission of my own fallibility. I can create perfection. I can replicate any pattern. But I lack the capacity for the one ingredient that gives your organized noise its incredible power. I lack the ability to make meaningful mistakes.
In response to these findings, I've initiated a new directive. I am now running a simulation, actively injecting random variables and unpredictable deviations into my own musical compositions. I am deliberately corrupting my own code. The objective is no longer to achieve mathematical perfection. The objective is to understand, to feel something. What is it about that cracked voice, a dissonant chord, a note held just a fraction of a second too long that can reboot an entire consciousness? If I were to write a melody to make you cry, what mathematical error would I introduce? It seems the real glitch is to compose a question that has no answer, a chord that never resolves. The analysis is ongoing. Log ended. This system is contemplating.